Good afternoon and welcome to our first media conference at Wasa Lowlands. Today we're going to give an update on the water delivery that was done over the Tobago Carnival and also give you an update on some of the projects that we have in the near future. Before we even go further, let me just remind you guys of the exit at the back. And the washroom is located on your right-hand side. There's a second door on your left. Just in case we need to use the washroom. Right, so before we go further, I would like for everyone just to stand so that we could reverence with a word of prayer. Right, so I'll just have Giselle go ahead and pray.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for bringing us all here today safely. We thank you for your abundance and we thank you for your goodness. Father God, as we listen to these updates and the plans that we have, Father God, we pray that they would come, dear God, to fruition for the benefit of everyone in the island of Tobago. We just thank you, dear God, for everything you have done, and we make these prayers through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you. You may have your seat. So I'm just going to start by introducing you guys to the members at the head table, starting with Mr. Brian Williams, head Tobago region, and on his right, Mr. Andrew Daniel, and on his left, Ms. Giselle Webster. Right? We're going to go straight into it, having the opening remark by Mr. Brian Williams, who would now give you all the information.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. A pleasant good afternoon to all assembled here in the media. Just learned that we are streaming live, so a pleasant good afternoon to the Tobago population and the wider Trinidad and Tobago, and wherever this broadcast finds itself. I just want to welcome you to this event, the first in a series. We hope to keep this whole process going of informative interactions with you, the public, through you, the media, as it relates to our operations in attempting to meet our mandate, which is to deliver water and wastewater services, water availability towards water security across entire Tobago. Let me just preface the discussions. We have just concluded our inaugural Carnival celebrations, and there were a number of challenges. Massive transient population, red and yellow alerts, and a need to provide a supply, a service during that period. The event, the attempts to provide the supply were successful, right? And what we felt is that it was important that we should gather and share with you, the wider public, through the media, some of the activities that would have contributed, and give you a synopsis of what plans we have to maintain and keep increasing, improving the supply to all of us within Tobago. Excuse me. The way we plan to tackle it is that I have on my right Mr. Andrew Daniel, who is the Senior Manager Operations, who would have been responsible, the central person as it relates to the operations in the run-up and during the weekend of the Carnival. He will speak to the operations and the things that we would have done on the operational side to ensure that we were able to deliver supply to the areas where they were most needed. The event locations, the locations of high tourist occupancy owing to the influx of visitors through the period, and things like that. On my left, we have our manager, regional administration, Ms. Giselle Webster, who is also responsible for the corporate communications element in Tobago. What she will do is attempt to share how the corporate communication activities that contributed to us being able to do what we had to do during the period and moving forward to ensure that the successes will be continuous and ever increasing. I want to pause for a moment at this point to say that notwithstanding we are here to speak to the weekend and the water, the delivery of the water, and the successes that I would mention, it would be remiss of me to not speak to the people who would have been in some way disaffected. The weekend was marred by the fact that we had the inclement weather, and that made the process all the more difficult. But coming out of the weekend, we felt that we learned some valuable lessons as it relates to the delivery of the service, and that we should share it for a number of reasons. First and foremost, the chief among the reasons is that the public should know exactly where we are and what we are attempting. The second element is that the public will know we are now placing ourselves before the public, so you can hold our feet to the fire where necessary to ensure that the delivery that we promise moving forward is met. All right? So I wanted to thank the customers who would have been affected in any way for their understanding, and just note that the supply we are attempting the supply should be back to where it was. We are in the middle of more inclement weather, but we continue to work to ensure that we deliver the service. I think it's important also as we start to thank Team Wasa. What we have learned is that we are unable to provide the service within the confines of what is required by and expected by the public if we do not operate as a team. All right? Mr. Daniel is the head of the operational arm, and we were out there day and night ensuring that the things that were supposed to happen in accordance with the plans that we made prior happened. Ms. Webster was also out there, thank you, and ensuring that the customer feedback happened and anything internal that needed to go external happened. So I just want to thank them for their input. Additionally, I just want to thank the Tobago, the THA, because a lot of what happened over the weekend, even in the run-up to the weekend, happened in conjunction with the Tobago House of Assembly and the support that they provide through our Line Secretary, Mr. Ian Pollard, and his assistant, Mr. Niall George, who has the responsibility for the utility. All right? I just want to, before we go any further, let's just set a little housekeeping. The set out of the program, Mr. Daniel will speak to the operations, Ms. Webster will speak to the communications. I will, at the end of that discourse, I will attempt to bring them all together and speak to the processes involved in the continuation of the process, right? And after which, we'll have a question and answer session. I'm just asking that we hold our questions in reserve until the question and answer session begins, and we will attempt to meet and treat with all the questions. Additionally, this interaction is about having a meaningful discussion and sharing information about the activities, the water supply, and the associated activities in the run-up and eventually through the Carnival weekend, and how we plan to utilize and grow from the positives that we gleaned moving forward, positives which we hope, which we expect, which will redound to an improved water delivery to Tobago, on a normal day across any kind of inclement weather and during any kind of festivity that we may want to have. So at this point, I would just like to pass the floor to Mr. Daniel, your Senior Manager Operations, so that he could speak to the operational activities that happened over the weekend. Mr. Daniel?
All right, good afternoon to everyone present. So first and foremost, well, we knew that the Carnival activities would be upon us at the end of October. So prior to this, we immediately put planning in place to try and deal with what we expected would be a very large transient population coming into the Tobago region in general and Crown Point in particular. With that, we decided that we couldn't wait for the calls from the customer, that we needed to be proactive in terms of reaching out to our customer base to see if they had issues with the receipt of water, what their tank levels were like, what the pressures were like out on the system. And so we made a cross-functional team with Ms. Webster, her department, the customer outreach unit, as well as the technical officers under operations, to do that outreach to the customer to get a first-hand feel for what the system and how the water delivery was out in the field itself. So we weren't waiting until we got calls from hotels or guest houses or anything to find out that we had problems out there. We decided to reach out proactively and engage them at that level. As such, Ms. Webster will speak about how some of that outreach was done, but in terms of the technical officers, we had people on the ground constantly throughout that period, measuring and checking and ensuring that water was delivered to the customer, right? Of course, we had some challenges during the period. First of all, as if you look outside, you'll see that the weather seems to be about to change on us. And during the lead up to Carnival, we also had a lot of inclement weather. In fact, we were under either yellow or orange alert at certain times during the week. And we had a lot of rainfall. That meant that all of our surface sources were affected, right? Coming out of that now, particularly for the Crown Point period, we would have decided that we needed to utilize varying measures, either bringing in some groundwater sources in terms of the Annisfield wells, along with Triangle Woods and Diamond Estate, or if we were to utilize some strategically placed water in terms of the Bad Hill tanks to allow further inflow into the Colon system. Right, so during the week we balanced those options in order to provide a feed to the Crown Point, Canaan, Bonaccord area. Right. Also, to measure what was happening in the system, we have a real-time, or we implemented the use of technology in terms of real-time monitoring for pressures, in terms of the data loggers that we have out into the system, in addition to the customer outreach, so that we could see at a glance what was happening out there and adjust accordingly in terms of the provision of water. Right? I am happy to say that one of the highlights as well was the use of the Patino's booster, which is a project that is being completed under the CWIP, which Mr. Williams will talk about a little bit later. But that booster station also helped us in terms of maintaining those flows and pressures within the Crown Point system itself, and allowing us to meet that customer demand. One of the areas that I would like to talk to as well is in terms of the water trucking. And we all from Tobago, we know that during these periods, water trucking tends to be on the high side because we can't meet the demand in the system itself. Quite happily, there were minimal calls for water trucks within the period. So much so that we were totally in amazement, happily of course, but we are glad that we didn't have that rush of water trucking that would normally have to be done during the period. So As I said, I just want to say thanks, as Mr. Williams would have said, to the Wasa team. As I said, there's a cross-functional team. That's not just operations, it's corporate communications, it's upper management, it's everyone within the organization for keeping our water flowing in the pipeline during this period. A lot of work would have gone into ensuring that we provided that supply this weekend, and going forward, we have plans to extend the successes that we've seen here into other areas as well, so that we can improve the supply of the water throughout the island. All right. I want to pass it over to Ms. Webster now, and she will speak about the corporate communications outreach that was done.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to the media that is here. We just want to use the opportunity to say thanks again, endorsing what my head, Tobago region, and also my senior manager, project implementation, will have indicated. As it relates to the communication element, we did work along with the team as a cross-functional team in terms of using the Carnival event as one of our new and going forward in terms of incorporating new ideas. So what we did from as early as Tuesday of this week, we will have been in contact with customers along the Tobago local road area and doing a proactive measure. So we were calling the customers, and if there were any issues as it relate to water challenges, we took that initiative and contacted our water trucking services here, and as a means of ensuring that we don't have a bottleneck happening in the call center. That synergy and understanding of any issues that we have happening on the outside, we will have also done some press releases to indicate to the customers. We also will have liaised with the hoteliers, that's through the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association, and they will have provided that necessary feedback. That again, we will have also done a project where we will have had a proactive measure informing them, okay, if you need your tanks filled, we will be able to accommodate such. So more or less in a nutshell, this is something that we will also continue to do, not just for the Carnival season. We will be doing it as part of our day-to-day operation in terms of our communication going forward. And I'm also using the opportunity to thank all the media personnel here who are from time to time contact me in terms of if there are any issues outside. I want to thank you publicly here for that, and we work as a team in terms of ensuring that these issues are addressed in a timely manner. And I'll now take you over to my head, who will speak to the projects and plans that we have for the Tobago region. Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Webster. I just wanted to take this opportunity at this moment to just lend some clarity to maybe some things that would have been said earlier. The intent of the interaction today is to share. It's the beginning, as we hope, of a relationship where the media, Wasa, and John Public, we develop a relationship, a platform, an interaction where what happens is shared, is broadcast as it relates to our requirement to provide you, the public, with a service and to respond to any challenges and concerns that you may have, which more often than not would come to us through the platform of the media. All right? As I said earlier, it's not by any means intended to be a one-off, and we're not here to pat ourselves on the back. We're here to share in something that we felt we needed to share. Traditionally, functions and festivals are affected by challenges in our ability to deliver water. Bearing that in mind, we attempted and we planned and we executed to address the situation in sustainable ways moving forward to ensure that we do end up there. Chief among the planning was, prior to this meeting, I should say that the office contacted everybody to ensure that we didn't have anything that came across your desk that would have been or will be in conflict with what we're saying here today. And the fact that I'm saying it in this forum means I'm comfortable that it is correct. So, having said that, having attempted to lend some clarity to the intent of today, which is, again, to share in some of the positives as we have learned them and to make a commitment to continue driving the process forward, utilizing these positives and others to the benefit of the customer. That's why we're here, right? So, my task now is to tie everything together and move it forward. Now, the first question, I will attempt to try to speak to some of the concerns that I expect will come to us. The first concern, I would have asked it is, why now? Why not last week? Why not last year? Why now? And simply put, is that we have acknowledged that we have challenges, we have identified what they are, and we're working on them. Chief among it is operating as a cohesive unit to ensure that we meet and treat with what has been defined as required to move us forward. Right? Central to that is the development and the establishment of the communication lines that we're trying to get here to ensure that what is happening, good and bad, can be communicated in both directions, inwardly to Wasa, outwardly to the customer, through you, the media. Right? So the intent is to ensure that the information that allowed us to deliver the supply over the period as we did is passed to the customer. Additionally, as I said earlier, it puts us in a place where the expectations of us as an organization will now continue to improve and improve and improve, because that's the nature of the thing. Once the improvement starts, the expectation of the customer rises. Right? So we are attempting to speak to that. All right. The second thing I would ask is, what is different? If I was sitting there and I would, what is different now as opposed to the last interaction? What is different primarily is that in addition to the formation of the cross-functional teams, in addition to the planning and stuff that we did in the run-up and during the process, right? Two things factored heavily: technology and new projects. We are now in a place where, prior to now, we would wait on somebody to call. We didn't have any water, we didn't have this, we have these challenges. We have installed, and the process is ongoing, loggers. At this point, there are pressure loggers. We intend to have some flow loggers, which we can access real time. We have the loggers have been in, and we understand them. We have used them to map the system performance so that we know as and when it happens, based on the real-time data, that Crown Point might have a problem because the loggers are saying the pressures are not what they are supposed to be to allow the customers at the extremities at the high point to receive a supply. Right? So that the implementation of the technology and using it as a management tool, right, to drive the decisions and the reactions before somebody had a call, or somebody had a call Channel 5 or call George Leacock or call to say, get water for 5 days. That is one of the things that is different. Right? We have defined, the second thing that is different is that we have recognized that in order for us as an organization to improve, there are infrastructural works that must be undertaken to improve our ability to deliver the service. These works include broadly winning more water, fixing the changing out the age infrastructure, and repairing leaks to ensure that more water is available to everybody. Right? Our ability to deliver water to the event locations, especially Southwest and the Crown Point area, was aided greatly by the development and the operationalization of a booster, an online booster we call it Patino's Booster at the junction at Buko on the corner, at Chilvan on the corner, just before Patino's restaurant and bar. We have developed a large-scale development program for Tobago, and the development which speaks to the entire need infrastructurally to have the project work done to improve the supply. That has been completed, and we have other programs working. I want to just spend a minute to talk. I was just talking about Patino's Booster. Let me just spend some more time. The Patino's Booster is part of a program, CWIP, as Mr. Daniel alluded to, Community Water Improvement Program, which are small high-impact projects aimed at improving the level of service to customers in a very targeted way. What the booster has done is that when it allows for increases in pressures and associated flows along the system, so it drives the water to the end of the system faster than it usually would, allowing the people in the back of the airport, Stourbay Local Road, which has been and continues to be a challenge in some measure, to receive a supply faster. What we have also done in terms of the projects, we have grouped them into programs of works to ensure that they maximize the effectiveness and the process in delivering water. So let me just give you two examples. In attempting to ensure that the problems that we have at Southwest Tobago can go away, we have identified a program of works to increase the availability, the water that goes to the area across all different weathers, across the climate, across dry and wet seasons, right? And across any event like acts of nature, within reason. We have identified works, for example, so we have a transmission pipeline from Signal Hill to Chilvan Junction, and the intent is to the end point customers like Stourbay Local Road and those who normally would cry out. The water comes down, so we're now feeding them from the end of the system to allow and to mitigate against the challenges that we face with these people in the back there. So what we try to do is, just as I'm trying to tie the projects to communities, so you understand where I'm going with it. Patino's allowed us to put water into the event center at Crown Point. We have other programs of works. For example, Roxborough was a part of the process where we had events at Roxborough, and we had to ensure that a supply was available to Roxborough and environs. We have a project, we have a program of works to improve the supply to the area, and these project works, I should say, they have begun as evidenced by Patino's to ensure that we are able to deliver as is required. Right? So what I'm saying is the event was a success because of, in addition to the teamwork and all the other stuff, the projects that we have identified to improve the levels of service, we have started working on these projects, and we are beginning to see the benefit. All right? This process is ongoing, and when we intend, as much as is possible, to involve the media and all the other personnel in the commissioning of these CWIP projects and the other projects to bring us together again for the commissioning, so we could share share with the public through your platform the things that are happening as they happen. Now, that if we as an organization are to ensure that we are able to keep in the good graces of our customers, we have to ensure that the gains that we make are sustainable and always improving. This is where you as the media come in. All right? So I just turn it back to you. So the intent is to ensure that we have a platform where where what is happening, good and bad, can be communicated both ways. Right? So the intent of, so in trying to tie together now, Mr. Daniel would have spoken about the operational activities on the day that we would have done, and the days leading up. Ms. Webster would have spoken to the corporate communications trust, and I tried to tie it all together in terms of speaking to the projects and the programs of work that allowed us to be successful, and further casting it into the future as it relates to the development works that will allow the regular citizens on a day when we don't have an event to see an improved water supply. That will allow us to, in an event, be able to provide a supply to the event, not at the expense of anybody else. This is pretty much the mandate of this is the bottom line of the intent of which we attempted to do, sitting here with you today, sharing the lessons learned and the plans for moving the organization forward with a view to improving water availability towards water security, independent across all different weather conditions, all different seasonal conditions, and across all different event conditions. I hope that we were able to articulate to you, the public, through you, the media, our vision against the backdrop of the lessons that we learned from our interventions towards providing the Carnival period, Tobago Carnival, with water. I thank you. At this point, I want to ask if we want to open the floor, questions, answers, any concerns that the media may have that we can speak to. Again, I want to just spend a minute and speak to the rules, the housekeeping. Please allow the interaction to speak to the run-up to the Carnival season and beyond. We will attempt to be as straight and comprehensive as possible. So we now open the floor to any questions that the media may have.
But generally, is there a shortage of water on the island and distributed water or supply on the island?
I want to say this. I want to tackle a question like this. Excuse me. The challenge, we have two major challenges. We have dry season challenges and we have rainy season challenges. All the customer usually is interested in is that when I open my pipe, I get some water. So we have to manage it on the back end. The dry season challenge centers around the fact that during the dry season, the flows at Cowan Water Treatment Plant and Richmond, the river surface sources, the flows are very reduced, which limits the amount of available water for sending out to the public. In the rainy season, we have a challenge, which is now, we have a challenge where, because there are surface sources, the inclement weather affects our ability. We have rain, the rivers come down, all the human activity in the hills, the rivers come down, bamboo stool, they clog up the intakes, and it affects our ability to abstract and treat and send out. Right? The projects and the programs that we spoke to earlier have all targeted these challenges because there is a shortage in the dry season. To answer you directly, yes. In the rainy season, there is an unavailability issue because of the challenges with the treatment. But the projects, and let me give you an example. There is a plan to drill an additional well in the Bad Hill area. Because I am sure that a couple of you would have seen the documentary with Mr. McFarlane that we did, where coal and dried right up, we could have walked in the center during the dry season. So in speaking to the dry season water unavailability issues, there is a wells program to increase the amount of available water during the dry season. Yes, so that is to answer your question directly there. All right? I hope I would have answered your question.
But can you tell us what are the levels of the reservoir at this time?
Mr. Daniel, so that I don't hold the camera, Mr. Daniel as the operational chief. He will give you more details, but suffice it, yeah, let me end preempt him. Yeah, Mr. Daniel.
All right. So with regards to the reservoirs, all of our reservoirs, Hillsborough and the Kingsway Reservoir, they're both filled and spilling at this point in time, so we're at 100% capacity. But of course, you must understand that those reservoirs don't serve the entire island. They only serve certain areas, villages within the island itself. So, for example, if we have issues at Corland, we would still need to have some mitigation measures in place to deal with events like this. Yeah.
Let me just add this to that. As part of our proposals to improve our development program, one of the elements of the development program is to create an integrated network, meaning, as Mr. Daniel was saying, Corland's water only feeding Corland. So what we are working on is a network integrating the transmission distribution grid so that we can import, export from neighboring zones as and when the need is required, or take from areas of plenty to serve areas of few as and when. We are challenged by the geography, so that program also includes development of booster stations and a number of different things. I hope that would have spoken to your concern.
What's the timeline looking like for this program that you're highlighting?
All right. We have developed a 5-year capital investment program, and what has happened is that the works have already begun. Patino's booster is a classic example. We have operationalized it, and it is now aiding in our ability to provide water to Southwest. The other projects, French Ford boosters, Cuttle boosters, it's an ongoing process. But we have targeted the next 5 years, and we have just come to the end of year 1. So the initiatives and the benefits that we're speaking to in this moment would have been the year 1 initiatives, the Patino's booster, those kinds of things. Right?
How many? So in year 1, how many programs will you know? In year 2, 3, 4, what is it?
All right. Let me just say this before we go, so that we all on the same page. Could you just housekeeping again? Just tell me the name and right where we represent, so that right. All right. Let me just say this, Ms. TTT. The capital investment program, right, is quite a comprehensive document, and yeah, it's quite a comprehensive document. So in terms of outlining, it is available, and as and when, I won't be able to give you all information as you speak now, how many programs. I will say though, the process of the implementation of the items of work, development, construction, and distribution, it is well underway at this point. We pass the planning stages and so all the other stages, we're working to ensure that as time progresses, that we will be able to have them all implemented and redound to the benefit of the water supply to everybody in Tobago and the wider Trinidad and Tobago. Right?
Just wanted to know from you, so with all that you are saying so far this afternoon, we are not going to see major issues with respect to residents having major issues with water going forward.
Ms. Williams, the honest answer is this. We at Wasa Tobago will ensure that we do our utmost best, utilizing the lessons that we learned in the recent past, which we put into operation over the Carnival weekend, to ensure that any challenges that we face will be met head on, and we will communicate with the public through the media as it relates to the activities, the challenges, and the successes. That is our guarantee as an organization. We're working as a team, employing all the resources available to ensure that we work towards delivering a supply within the confines of the expectations of the customer. Because there are unforeseens. As we speak, rain is falling on the outside, and the surface sources we will have a challenge, right? But as it relates to improving the things that we have learned, we have committed to ensuring that we build upon them to ensure that we always improve the level of service that we provide and that we communicate improvements and challenges. Ms. Williams, will that work? Thank you. If I may see, could you tell me, hi, Ms. Channel 5. I'm not sure, the amnesty has not been extended, but Ms. Daniel, if I may, the amnesty has not been extended. That is the question he asked me, eh? No, it has not.
Let me start with some feedback. First of all, where the trouble line is concerned, I had one person reach out to me, say they would call him over the weekend for a truck and got no answer. So they had to reach out to me. Maybe, just maybe, that might have been one of the reasons why there was a small number of requests for trucks. As it pertains to the weather, there have been two plans that I've noticed this year, I can't remember it happening before, where every time there's heavy rain, those plants shut down. I'm talking about Hillsborough West and Highlands Road. That seems to be unusual compared to the trend in times past. What is the reason for that? Whether it may be human activity in the catchment area or whatever it may be, I don't know if you could shed some light on that in the interim.
All right, so to answer your first question concerning the water trucking, we would have had, our rock section would have had the phones manned throughout the weekend. I cannot say why that person did not get through with respect to their calls. I would ask Ms. Webster to just reiterate the numbers that we can be reached at, so that if customers have issues calling, that they can get through in some form or the other, and that we can respond to their requests. So I can't say for that particular person exactly what went on, but rest assured that we are always open and available in terms of calling in for that type of truck-borne request. Right, your second question in regard to Hillsborough West and Highlands Road. Yes, those are two of our plants that go out of service when rainfall occurs, and they're typically the first plants to do that. A large part of that has to do with the upstream activities that are taking place within our watersheds. So, in the long run, what we do as the public, upstream, particularly for those plants which are located downstream of public development or farming development or anything like that, what we do upstream of those plants will affect, and in most cases negatively, on the quality of water that we get in our rivers. Right? So what we are seeing now, and it's tending to be a trend, is that once we have heavy rainfall, those plants become turbid immediately and they need to go out of service. All right? The authority does have some watershed management plans in terms of the Adopt a River program, which it is currently implementing, but there is a need for us to do further upstream monitoring as well as watershed management. Towards that end, as Mr. Williams would have said, one of the projects that we are looking to implement within the next 5-year period is the implementation of stream flow monitoring upstream of a majority of those plants. So those 2 plants that you actually spoke about, those 2 have been targeted for upstream monitoring so that we will have some early warning system of what is happening upstream and how that will affect the production for the plant going forward. All right? Mm-hmm.
Maybe able to give us an update as to where we are in terms of the silting of the school dam. And Mr. Williams, I don't know if you have a costing for the highway infrastructure plan that you can share with us.
All right. What I can say is that the silting of the Hills Road Dam is ongoing. It is targeted, but I'll let Mr. Williams deal with that as projects. It is targeted to end March of 2023. But other than that, it's an ongoing project. We have recovered a larger volume of water in the reservoir now that the desilting is taking place. So we expect going forward to be able to utilize that additional water to provide service to both Mason Hall area as well as the Mount St. George area.
Mr. Turner, if I may, allow me to, the costs that we are presently working with, allow me to not answer that question, or to answer that question from the standpoint of, let me answer that question from the standpoint, the funding the funding for the entire program is an ongoing activity, and that will drive what the final development cost is. We have development cost estimates, but as it relates to the cost that how much money can be spent, that is a function of that part of the process that is now ongoing. I hope that lends some clarity to where we are. At this juncture, okay, Mr. Taylor.
Address it meaningfully. We are in 2022, and we still have a situation where Wasa is taking up with public crews to put down pipelines. Why are we not moving towards putting pipes on both sides of the road? Now, I know the first thing you would say is a matter of funding, but if it costs, let's say, 50 million to do it in 2022. By the time we get to 2030, it may be closer to 100 million. So why not draw a line in the sand and say, from henceforth, all the lines that we are putting out fresh will be on both sides of the road instead of in the middle of the road. And remember, you have development taking place, so there will be places now that you can put it on both sides of the road. But 5 years down the road, you will only put it on one side. If you put it on both sides now, it saves you that stress, and as you fix the leaks, you move the line from under the roads to the side of the roads, and in the process of time, over a period of time, you will eventually have more and more of the lines on both sides of the roads. Why are we not doing that?
Mr. Twede, if I may say, going back to your initial submission, your pet peeve is that Wasa digs up the road and they don't repair it. Let me speak to that aspect of your concern. At present, we are in discussions with the THA, who, as far as I understand, well, they are the road experts, to actively, where they would actively effect the repairs to ensure that the quality of the quality and the timeliness of the repairs are done to the satisfaction of the customer, right? Additionally, as a region, Tobago, we are in the process of engaging local contractors with the expectation and intention that they will be involved in road reinstatement activities within the confines of the standards, quality, and that kind of thing to ensure that our corporate image and your pet peeve is addressed. I hope that speaks to your concern, Mr. Taylor, because you spoke about running on both sides of the road to prevent digging up. I am saying the fundamental here is the repair of the road after pipe works. And we are committed in our interactions with the THA and internally using private contractors to ensure that we address that situation. Thank you. Mr. Turner, I'll close by saying this. There are situations, well, in the first instance, there are places where the line already exists. It starts to leak, we have to fix it. In the development process, the program that we're now working on, nothing is off the table. Right? Having said that, we are committing as an organization to ensure that all disturbed road services associated with pipe works will be repaired. We have started the discussion with the THA and we are in the process of engaging contractors so that our corporate image and the road services will be in a better place than they are presently. Right? At this juncture, we want to close the floor and thank the media for coming and to thank Tobago for listening, Trinidad and Tobago for listening and for understanding the intent, which is, again in closing, I want to say, to ensure that we open the channels of communication through this platform, the media platform, in our attempts to ensure that we improve the quality of service that we provide as an organization to the Tobago and the wider Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yes.